On September 4th, 2024, Plastic Man is going to be taken behind a barn and shot to death like a rabid dog. And then he's going to be revived 6 months later. But don't fucking talk about that. So consider this a preemptive memorial service for what I think is a great character. So, because I'm legally insane, I tend to like my Batman silly and my Plastic Man dour and self-serious, which is why I was instantly drawn to Mark Waid and Joe Kelly's arcs regarding Plastic Man in the 1997 run of Justice League. So, Divided We Fall is already just a great comic. It's written by Mark Waid, so that's pretty much the only recommendation that I need to give to anybody. But basically what happens is fourth dimensional aliens use a cosmic cube, not a Marvel cosmic cube. This is just a cube that happens to have cosmic abilities and separate the secret identities and the superhero identities of all of the Justice League. And Plastic Man doesn't have a secret identity, or he doesn't have a very popular one. He used to be Elo Bryan. He used to be a criminal, but when he became Plastic Man, he kind of left it all behind. And so when his secret identity and his superhero identity are split, he's basically regressed as a character. He's taken everything that he was as a person and shunted him back to what he was, a career criminal. Because immediately after he regresses, he starts to relapse. He starts robbing people just for the sake of it. He starts pickpocketing. There's the implication, I believe, that he almost robbed a truck, and he's really grappling with this intense need that he had when he was a criminal. Elo Bryan, when confronting John Jones, who's also been separated from his body, refers to himself as a thug and someone who spent every second of every day trying to figure out who he had to hurt to get his, and refers to Plastic Man as a soul. And I like that interpretation a lot because it implies that Plastic Man was the only thing stopping Elo Bryan from continuing to fall into just criminality. In the next panel, he even says, you know the sound a gun butt makes across a guy's skull? It's low and wet, like a ball bat pulping a melon. Haven't heard that noise for years. Now it's like a song I can't get out of my head, and I want to hear it again. He's relapsing. He needs Plastic Man because he needs this righteous ability in his life to keep him from becoming what he was before. And I think that's a really interesting interpretation of it. It takes this character who's just goofy and silly and kind of shows you that without this mask, without this soul, he can't do anything. He feels lost. He feels, terrible. It's really interesting to look at it from this perspective because it shows Plastic Man as a character who's deeply, deeply ashamed of his past and is kind of much happier with who he became than he used to be. And it's something that he really would just like to throw behind him. He can't take what he was before, and he refuses to kind of acknowledge the person that he was, even if it influenced the person that he became to a huge extent. So by the end of the story, Plastic Man manages to beat the shit out of Bruce Wayne and tells him that, they're only one half of a person. Without, the experiences that Bruce Wayne has, Batman is just kind of an empty shell. And I think that works as meta commentary to all superheroes in the sense that you kind of need that humanity, that gravitas from, their secret identity to create a character. If they're just their superhero identity at all times, it kind of removes that humanity from them, that personality that makes them a superhero that you can relate to in the first place. And if you really want to, look deep into this, it's also just cool because Plastic Man is beating the shit out of Bruce Wayne. So this part is where I started to really enjoy this look at Plastic Man, because he has this weird personality trait where he tends to run away from responsibility. He's kind of a coward, but he always comes back. There's never a point in these comics where Plastic Man has a crisis of faith and chooses to run away completely. It's a little bit pathetic, but at the same time, it really endears me to him as a character because it's, painfully human for somebody to run away from this responsibility. And I don't think that's any more apparent than in the next arc written by Joe Kelly. So basically, Plastic Man asks Batman if he can scare straight his ex-girlfriend's kid, at which point Batman accepts because he's got nothing better to do on a Tuesday night, I guess. And so they go to the apartment, they meet Angel, Plastic Man's ex-girlfriend, and they start looking through the kid's room, and then they find knives. And because Batman's the world's greatest detective, he immediately knows that knives is immediately equivalent to gang activity, and so they start, going on the prowl looking for Luke, the kid. I should have mentioned his name was Luke beforehand. His name is Luke. They start looking for the kid Luke, and they find out that he transformed into a 10-foot tall dinosaur that's wreaking havoc over the city. At which point, Batman realizes that it's not just a random kid, and very obviously it's Plastic Man's son. And Plastic Man says that he basically ran. He ran because he was scared that he either didn't want to end up being like his father, or he wants a low life, always a low life, or he didn't want to screw up the fun that he was having playing superhero. But he disappeared, and he left the kid on his own until this night. And Batman brings up the interesting point that he thought Plastic Man would be a good father because he would show his kids how much he loved them as opposed to just telling them. That, and the fact that he would make them laugh all the time. Something that, if you've read any Plastic Man comic, you would know is kind of his primary character trait. Plastic Man is a character that loves to smile and loves to make other people smile. And so this kind of contrast is a little bit upsetting, to say the least. And it really works in contrast to the Plastic Man we've seen so far. Even with Batman's uncharacteristic endorsement, Plastic Man so far has been a character that's run away from responsibility, and he's kind of scared of the mistakes that he made in the past. In the same way that he used to be a crook and he's trying to move past it, he made one mistake with an ex-girlfriend and he tries not to think about it until he has to be actively sought out to solve an issue that, in part, he helped create. It's also important to mention that at this point, Luke O'Brien is infinitely more in control of his powers than Plastic Man is. Anyway, they get back to the gang hideout, and Batman basically says, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you, Luke O'Brien, if you ever do anything illegal ever again. He's saying this to a fucking 10-year-old, by the way. Holy shit. And Plastic Man is nowhere to be seen. He's basically hiding in the utility belt the entire time. And he doesn't come out until they get back to the Watchtower. At which point, Plastic Man doesn't thank him. He doesn't mention anything about his kid. All he does is change the color of his nose to prove that it is possible. With great strain, might I add. He deflects because he doesn't want to engage with the fact that he was basically an absentee father for the past 10 years. And the only thing Batman can say when Plastic Man says that he can change color too is, maybe you will. Maybe someday you'll change your colors. Despite the fact that he seemingly changes way for the better, he still has a lot of these unhealthy traits that he just can't seem to shake. He's very scared of relapsing into the person that he was, and because of that, he kind of refuses to confront this kind of darkness that a lot of superheroes choose to do. And so this comes to a head when they're sent 3,000 years into the past, and Plastic Man is basically destroyed and crumbled to the bottom of the ocean. And if you've watched any YouTube short that stars Plastic Man in the past 8 billion years, you'd know Plastic Man can't die. He basically got sent to the bottom of the ocean and went psychotic there. He said that he sang songs, he wrote poems, and he basically just couldn't do anything but think. And the one thing that he kept on thinking about the entire time is that wouldn't it have been nice to get to know your son? And so after 3,000 years of sitting at the bottom of the ocean, Plastic Man finally has a change of heart. And here's where it gets interesting. So after leaving the Justice League, the evil alternate persona of Martian Manhunter, a being named Furnace, created after the Guardians of Oa lobotomized Martians because they were too powerful, starts wreaking havoc. And it just so happens the only person capable of standing up to him and being able to resist mind control left the Justice League 2 issues earlier. It also happens that for some fucking reason, Plastic Man has also decided to lobotomize himself as well into believing he's just some random dude named Ralph Johns for some fucking reason. It's interesting to look at this in conjunction with the other issues to analyze this version of Plastic Man. Either running away from crime and fatherhood into superheroics, or from superheroics to fatherhood again, he tends to flee from his problems and refuses to make at least an effort to fix more than one of his many problems at once. Even when he wasn't Plastic Man in Divided We Fall, he had the opportunity to do good, but he got himself psyched to the point where he was relapsing like a drug addict, making it seem like he was going to start killing again and fall into criminality. He has a consistent pattern of poor coping mechanisms and a tendency to run from issues no matter what they are. They even address this in the comic. When Luke asks if this is because of him, Batman responds, no, this is on Plastic Man. He has to work through these issues if he wants to be able to function. He can't just ignore his problems forever, or like his son, his criminality, or fucking tax evasion, it's gonna catch up to him. Eventually, Luke manages to snap him out of it, and he arrives just in time to become the face of YouTube shorts about power scaling for generations. And then, cut to 9 weeks later, and Luke is still waiting, but this time, he doesn't have to wait 10 years for his father to show up. This is, as far as I'm concerned, where he peaks in this comic. It's a full circle moment where for the first time, Luke is with his father as Plastic Man. He's finally managed to take aspects of his life, and instead of truncating them, or running, or ignoring them, he managed to finally put his life together, at least for a little bit of time. He can be a father, and he can be Plastic Man. Not every character is Superman. Not everyone is a golden Boy Scout trooper. Plastic Man was a criminal absentee father who sometimes scalps tickets, but he never quits. He's a character who constantly fucks up, but somewhere deep down, you know he'll come back. I like imperfect characters, ones that have shit to work through. But frankly, Plastic Man is also great when he's just a silly guy. And since nobody gives a shit about him, he constantly oscillates between miserable fucking wreck and funky Stretch Armstrong. Eventually, when they bring him back in 6 months, someone new will get a chance to figure out where this character goes next. And frankly, I have no fucking idea, but I'll probably read it. And so should you. These aren't definitive Plastic Man comics from his, 800-year run, nor are they the definitive view of the character, but I thought they were really neat and I wanted to share. I guess you can leave the basement now. I didn't really think the whole concept of this video through. Not really a through line. You could just leave now.